Russell Wilson's New York tenure looks like it's headed for one of those midseason pivots you always hear about but rarely expect. The kind that rearranges more than one roster and forces a lot of uncomfortable questions about fit, value, and timing. The short version: multiple NFL insiders say Wilson is expected to emerge as a trade candidate before the November 4 deadline. That report isn't idle chatter. It comes from league sources with a track record of accuracy, and it lands right after the Giants move decisively to hand the keys to rookie Jaxson Dart. If you're a team in the market for a veteran, proven starter who can still make high-end plays, Wilson is officially on the table. Yahoo Thetao. Why this is happening now. This is part football, part roster math, part optics. Wilson's production this year has been uneven enough that the Giants installed Jaxson Dart as the clearer long-term plan, creating a situation where keeping Wilson around as an expensive backup isn't ideal for either party. The club-building logic is straightforward. Find a use for a still valuable veteran asset, free the room for the rookie to develop, and extract draft capital or a player that addresses a real, immediate need. The Giants' decision to give Dart meaningful work and start him is the clearest sign that the organization is moving on from the "we'll figure this out" phase. ESPN.com. Contract reality: why Wilson is trade feasible. One big reason a midseason deal is realistic: Wilson's contract is structured so that an acquiring team wouldn't be taking on a crushing cap hit. The one-year pact he signed in New York carries a modest base and an $8 million signing bonus as part of the $10.5 million total. The way that money is prorated means most of the dead cash sits with the Giants, while the new team would only be on the hook for the remaining base and any short-term guarantees. In plain English, Wilson is affordable enough that teams with immediate QB needs can add him without mortgaging their future. That's why chatter about him as a trade candidate isn't purely speculative. It's financially possible. X, formerly Twitter: who makes sense as a suitor and why? If you're trying to build a short list, start with teams that suddenly find themselves hurt at the quarterback position or desperate for stability. 1. Cincinnati Bengals. It's the most obvious match on the surface. Joe Burrow's toe surgery sidelines him for months, and the Bengals are suddenly searching for a bridge starter who can keep them competitive while Burrow heals. Wilson is a high-upside veteran who can step in and maintain the offense's structure while Cincinnati figures out the long-term plan. That scenario, a contender with an injured star, is precisely the kind of place a veteran starter can slot in and help. Yahoo Tethao 2. Contenders wanting an upgrade. Teams like the Vikings or Saints, depending on injury and cap situations, have been floated in rumor cycles elsewhere as potential fits for veteran upgrades. The calculus there is competitive window plus a roster that needs a steadier hand than what it currently has. Those deals tend to require creativity, draft pick swaps, conditional protections, but they're plausible if the price is right. 2. Quarterback-needy teams that want experience. There are always teams close enough to contention that won't spend a top draft pick on a quarterback mid-year, but would pay proven starter rent. Wilson fits that profile: big name, experienced, still capable of high-level play in the right system. What the Giants can and should ask for. If you're New York, what do you take? Given that Wilson is a one-year rental in terms of long-term control, the return should prioritize immediate, useful value: mid-round draft capital, a second or stable third, a starting caliber player in a position of need, or a team-ready draft pick swap that improves the Giants' flexibility this offseason. Asking for a first is probably unrealistic unless a suitor is doing a full reset and values Wilson as a multi-year piece, which is unlikely given his financial and age profile. The truth: the market will decide, but the Giants don't have to sell low. There's buyer demand and manageable financial mechanics, which gives them leverage. Yahoo Tethao: risk for acquiring teams, and why not every contender will jump. A mid-season Wilson trade comes with caveats. He's been inconsistent. He's a veteran with a history of high and low variance seasons. Integrating a new starter mid-year, even a veteran one, disrupts chemistry, timing, and play caller rhythms. Some teams will prefer to ride their current option, promote from within, or swing at a cheaper stopgap rather than surrender assets and a playbook reset. In other words, Wilson is attractive, but he's not a guaranteed upgrade for every team that calls. How this could reshape the rest of the season. If Wilson moves, the dominoes are real. The acquiring club changes its QB narrative, the Giants get draft capital to accelerate a rebuild or supplement a roster spot, and a young starter, Dart, either gets his first extended audition or the team speed ramps its timeline. For the league overall, it's another reminder that veteran quarterbacks still carry trade value in a market starved for experience, especially when injuries hit. Bottom line, this is a live, solvable problem for multiple franchises and a real opportunity for the Giants to convert a short-term mismatch into longer-term flexibility. It's also the exact kind of mid-season shakeup that's messy but potentially smart. Wilson can help a team chase now, while the Giants pivot to the future with assets rather than a surplus of veterans. Expect calls from contenders with immediate need, expect negotiation over price and protections, and expect the story to unfold quickly, because if the deadline is November 4th, teams won't wait around for a perfect offer. Yahoo Thethao, if you want, I can now sketch the three most probable trade packages: conservative, market value, and reach, and what each would mean for both New York and a potential receiving team. Big development. Russell Wilson is reportedly emerging as a legitimate midseason trade candidate, sources say, even though the veteran quarterback isn't planning to request a release. The news comes after a rocky start in New York. Through 3 games, Wilson's play has been uneven. Low QBR and completion percentage, 3 TDs and 3 INTs, with all the scoring coming in one monster outing. Still, his resume and experience make him an attractive option for teams suddenly thrust into quarterback uncertainty. Why a trade is suddenly plausible. Wilson's current contract structure makes a deal far more palatable for potential buyers than his headline salary might suggest. His 1-year deal pays $10.5 million and includes an $8 million signing bonus. That front-loaded money means any acquiring club would be responsible for only the remaining prorated or base salary portions for the year, keeping the immediate cap hit modest. In other words, a team in win-now mode, a proven starter without swallowing a massive dead money burden. Which teams could be interested? The most obvious suitor is Cincinnati. With Joe Burrow likely to miss time following toe surgery, the Bengals suddenly have a pressing need for a veteran who can keep them competitive. Other playoff-oriented clubs with wobbles at QB or teams facing injury concerns could also kick the tires. The Minnesota Vikings and several AFC squads have been mentioned as potential fits, depending on how each roster evaluates Wilson's strengths and limitations and what they'd have to give up in trade assets. What a trade would cost? It won't come cheap. Contending teams acquiring Wilson would likely owe draft capital and at least one veteran piece, depending on the market and Wilson's perceived upside. The Giants, conversely, would want immediate draft compensation for a player on a 1-year deal, and they must weigh the roster hit against the chance to recoup value after a disappointing start. So, from Wilson's perspective, the move makes sense if he wants to keep starting. He's said publicly he's not done, and a trade to a team with a clearer path to playing time could extend his run as a starter beyond 2025. For the Giants, trading him could free a roster spot and add future currency. For a buyer, Wilson offers a known quantity with playoff experience and elite rushing upside when healthy. Bottom line, this is a fluid, high-stakes storyline to watch leading up to the November 4 trade deadline. If Cincinnati or another contender truly needs a bridge, and if the Giants judge the return fair, a mid-season Russell Wilson trade could be one of the most consequential quarterback moves before rosters freeze.